Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've been camping in the White Mountains for years. I know the trails, the streams, and even the way the wind whispers through the pines. I've seen bears, foxes, and every kind of critter you'd expect. But nothing had ever made me feel the kind of fear I felt that night. I had set up my tent in a small clearing I found off the main trail. It was late October, and the trees were bare, their branches stretching out like twisted fingers under a silver moon. The air was cold, crisp, and strangely still. There was no wind, no rustling leaves, just silence. I made a small fire, cooked a little dinner, and crawled into my sleeping bag around 11 p.m. My dog Baxter curled up at my feet. I thought I'd be asleep in minutes, lulled by the crackling fire and the comforting smell of pine. But then I noticed it, a shadow, stretched long across the tent, impossibly dark against the pale glow of my flashlight. I froze. At first, I thought it was just the fire flickering, playing tricks on my eyes. Shadows dance when you stare too long, right? But this one didn't move. It didn't flicker. It just stood there, watching. Baxter growled low, a deep rumble that made my chest tighten. I whispered his name, trying to calm him and myself. The shadow didn't budge. I couldn't even tell if it had a shape, a form, or if it was just a dark patch in the air, heavy and alive. My mind raced. Maybe it was a hiker, maybe a deer, maybe no. I knew it wasn't an animal. It was too deliberate, too still. Then I heard it. A faint scraping sound like claws or fingernails dragging across the nylon of my tent. My stomach dropped. I held my breath. The sound came again, closer this time. Then it stopped. I couldn't see anything, but the shadow remained. I wanted to scream, to bolt, but my legs felt frozen, my hands numb. My dog whimpered, and his fur bristled. I whispered, "It's okay. Stay quiet." But even I didn't believe it. Minutes dragged. Every second stretched impossibly long. Then I made a mistake. I picked up my flashlight and shone it outside. Nothing. No figure. No tree movement. No animal. Only mud. And in that mud, footprints. Human footprints. Big, heavy, unmistakably human. They led right up to my tent and then vanished into the darkness. I sat in my sleeping bag, trembling, trying to convince myself it was just someone playing a prank. But why? Out here, miles from the nearest road? And why would anyone leave without even a word? I tried to sleep. I really did. But every rustle, every snap of a branch made my heart leap. I felt eyes on me, heavy and constant, like they were drilling into my skin. Baxter stayed alert too, growling at shadows that weren't there. I thought about leaving, about hiking through the dark forest back to the trail. But the thought of stepping outside and facing whatever had been lurking terrified me even more. So I stayed, all night. By dawn, I couldn't take it any longer. I packed up silently, my hands shaking. Every sound felt amplified. The crunch of leaves under my boots, the snapping of twigs, the hiss of the early morning wind. I kept glancing behind me, half expecting to see that shadow waiting, following, keeping pace. When I finally reached the main trail, I dared to look back. Nothing. Just the trees, quiet and empty. But even now, when I hike those trails in the White Mountains, I feel it. A presence. A shadow that doesn't belong. It waits in the periphery of my vision, just at the edge of the trees. I can't explain it. I can't even describe it. But I know it's watching. Always watching. And some nights, when the wind is still, I swear I can hear the faint scraping sound again, coming closer. I never camped alone in that area again. But sometimes when I tell this story, I notice people listening closer, their eyes darting toward the corners of the room. And I realize fear has a way of following too. Story 2. I've always been drawn to the woods. The smell of pine, the soft crunch of needles underfoot, the quiet that city life could never offer. That's why I planned a 3-day backpacking trip into Olympic National Forest. Alone. No one to bother me. No one to hear me think. It was supposed to be peaceful. I didn't expect it to be alive. The first day was ordinary. Birds, squirrels, the occasional deer. I hiked miles, my legs burning, but my mind at ease. By the time night fell, I found a small clearing beside a creek. The water babbled gently over mossy rocks. The air smelled of wet earth, and the sunset painted the sky in oranges and purples. Perfect. I pitched my tent, cooked a small meal, and settled in. As the last light disappeared, I lay in my sleeping bag, listening to the creek, thinking about nothing. That's when I heard it. Arslan. I froze. The voice was soft, almost a whisper, but unmistakable. My name. My blood ran cold. I live alone. I know this forest better than most, and there is no one else on this trail. No hikers, no campers, just me. I tried to convince myself it was the wind. Maybe it had caught in the trees in just the right way. I forced a laugh. Yeah, just the wind, I muttered to myself. But then it came again. Don't be afraid. I'm just here to watch. This time, it was closer, right outside the tent. My heart slammed against my chest like a drum. I held my breath, barely daring to move. The rustle of leaves around the tent was sudden and deliberate. I could almost feel something circling me, brushing past branches, but never stepping on the ground properly. I fumbled for my phone. No signal. Nothing. Just me, the trees, and that voice. I stayed in the tent, paralyzed, listening to every sound. A twig snapping, the soft crunch of leaves, the whispering wind, or whatever wasn't wind. Every shadow in the mesh of the tent looked like it was moving closer. Closer. Watching. Waiting. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed to stretch and bend in that darkness. I kept whispering my own name to myself, trying to remind myself I was awake, that I was human, that this was impossible. But the voice returned, soft and patient, like it had been waiting for me. Arslan. I swear I could feel the air thicken around me, like it was pressing against my skin, trying to push me down, keep me silent. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The fear was too real, too personal. Morning never felt so bright. When the first rays of sun slipped through the trees, I packed as quickly as I could. Every step away from the clearing felt like escape from a predator that was just beyond the edge of sight. I didn't look back, but I didn't need to. I could feel it still there, waiting, even as I left. Back in town, I sat down on my computer and started reviewing the footage from the wildlife cameras I'd set up around the campsite. I used them to capture deer, raccoons, maybe a bear. Nothing had prepared me for what I saw. There it was. At first, I thought it was a trick of the shadows, a mistake of the camera. But no, it was a figure, completely black, no features, just a shape standing beside my tent, watching. It didn't walk. It floated, or maybe it glided. The tips of its feet never touched the ground fully, and yet it moved with a smooth, impossible grace. Every frame, it was closer, watching me, just like the voice had said. And then, just before the first light of dawn, it vanished. Not running, not hiding, just gone. I haven't returned to that clearing since. I don't hike alone anymore, not after that night. Sometimes, when I'm lying in my apartment, I hear it, softly, almost too faint to recognize. Arslan. I can't tell anyone. They'd think I'm insane. But I know it's out there, waiting, watching. And every time I hear my name whispered in the dark, I remember that night in Olympic National Forest, and I know the truth. Some things in the woods don't just stay in the woods. And some of them know your name. Story 3. I thought I knew the Ozarks. I'd spent weekends hiking, camping, even sleeping under the stars alone, and I never felt truly scared. But that weekend changed everything. I had joined a small camping group, just 4 of us. The plan was simple. Set up camp, share a fire, maybe tell a few ghost stories, then sleep under the trees. Everyone was busy pitching tents when I picked a spot a little away from the main cluster. It wasn't far, but far enough to give me the privacy I liked. I liked the sound of the creek running nearby, the way the trees swayed gently in the wind. It felt safe. At first, everything was normal. The fire cracked. Someone roasted marshmallows. We laughed at our clumsy attempts to set up tents. Night fell, the sky deep blue turning nearly black, the forest alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant owls. I crawled into my sleeping bag, satisfied. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a faint sound. At first, I thought it was the wind, or maybe the creek, but then I realized it was a whisper. Soft, deliberate, urgent. I sat up, heart thudding, straining to hear. "Lee now." The words were barely audible, but they cut through the night like a knife. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. My friends must be messing with me. I called their names. "Hey, very funny. Come on, I'm awake now." Silence. Not a rustle, not a laugh, nothing. Just that strange stillness that makes your ears ring. I glanced around my tent, trying to convince myself it was a dream. That's when I saw it. A tent. I froze. It hadn't been there before. Pitch black. No glow from a flashlight inside. Perfectly zipped, standing between 2 trees like it had grown out of the forest itself. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Maybe it was some trick of the moonlight. Then the whispering came again, clearer this time, almost desperate. "Leave now." My stomach twisted. I forced myself to speak, my voice trembling. "Hello. Who's there?" Nothing. Just silence, except for the whisper, repeating over and over, almost taunting. I shook my head. "I'm dreaming," I muttered, but it felt too real, too close. My heart was pounding, my breath coming in shallow bursts. I finally decided to wake my friends. I ran through the trees, their tents barely lit by the small campfire we'd left smoldering. Guys, there's a tent. Someone's here. They blinked at me, confused, rubbing their eyes. What are you talking about? One said. There's no one else here. No extra tents. You were dreaming. No, I swear. I saw it. Right there, near the creek. It wasn't there before. Together, we walked back to where I had been sleeping. My friend's flashlights cut through the darkness, the beams trembling over the ground, over the trees. We reached the spot. Nothing. No tent. No disturbed earth. No footprints. Not even a branch out of place. The forest was calm, indifferent, like it had never seen me before. I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off, but the unease clung to me. We searched for hours, even using our phone's lights to scan the area. Nothing. Every corner, every inch, completely undisturbed. It was like that tent, and whoever or whatever had been in it had never existed. I tried to sleep again, but every shadow seemed to move. Every rustle in the leaves made me jump. I stayed awake the rest of the night, flashlight in hand, watching the forest breathe. I thought I saw shapes sometimes, dark figures between the trees, but when I focused, there was nothing, just the usual brush and trunks. The next morning, my friends teased me. Maybe a ghost camper. One said, laughing. I forced a smile, but inside, I felt something else, a gnawing fear that wouldn't leave. I packed up quickly, eager to leave the forest behind, but the whisper stayed with me. Sometimes at night, when the wind is right, I hear it again. Soft, distant, urgent. Leave now. I've never told anyone else what really happened that night. Not in detail. People wouldn't believe me. Even my friends thought I was joking. But I know the truth. Some campers never arrive. They never check in. They never introduce themselves. They don't leave footprints. And yet, they're already watching, waiting. I'll never go camping alone in the Ozarks again. And sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I swear I can see a dark shape at the edge of my window, perfectly still, just watching. Watching and whispering. Some campers never arrive, but they're always there,